No longer can you buy a petrol or a diesel Mégane, you have to buy an electric one. They made some great petrol and diesel engines as well, did Renault, but now you can't even have one. You've just got to have a great big electric motor instead. Lorenz van den Ecker. The Renault, of course, is one of those manufacturers well known for electrical issues. So, what kind of gamble would you be taking by having a car that does away with all the mechanical stuff in favour of the ions? My first observation on this car isn't how space age it looks, I'll come to that in a bit. No, but how security conscious it is. It wants to have itself locked and then unlock itself as soon as you go anywhere near it because it thinks you want to go inside. It's a bit confused by my videoing it. It doesn't know that actually I want to walk away from it and do a shot from another angle without it locking itself. But it keeps doing it. And I'm afraid that at some point it's going to say, hang on a minute, are you going to get in and have a drive or not? Well, yes I am, Renault Mégane E-Tech. I am going to take you for a drive. I just want to have a nice little look around you first to see what it is you're all about. And so this is the first time I've ever started off talking about a car being concerned about upsetting it and confusing it. Normally you don't have to worry about such things. Visually, I quite like it. It is obviously exceedingly cutting edge. Well, I say cutting edge. What I really mean is smooth edge. It's about as sharp as a block of cheese. I like cheese. Personally, I think this is a much more interesting looking car than the one it replaced. Hang on, not the one it replaced, the one before that. And that's why it's fitted with these gold chevrons on the front. Got a camera in the front there. The headlamp looks like some sort of stylized number 2. I don't mean the toilet number 2. And the little slitty headlamp there that doesn't look like it's going to do much, but I bet it's bright. It takes quite a lot of styling cues from all the crossover cars. This is a crossover of a crossover, quite frankly. It has the extra arch bits, but they're glossy. They're deliberately not meant to be scratched. 20-inch alloys. They're only 215, so they're not massively wide, but gosh, they're big. I'm going to point out something really obvious with this now, and that is its design. It looks kind of concept-like. It looks like the drawings of the concept that they came up with when they designed the car. But what happened is they just went and put it into production rather than going back to the drawing board and watering the idea down. These hooky bits here, a design characteristic continued on the back there. The rear lamps are a reflection of the front lamps, not literally. More of these cool gold chevron bits on the back, and the Mégane badge with the E. Yeah, that's quite clever, that is. Yeah, I like that. Switch for the boots is there, and that just opens it, but there's no handle. Why is there no handle there? What about this for a key fob though? How cool is that? It feels really nice. It's colourful, it's big, it looks a bit like a mobile phone. Now this, I really like it. What a nice tactile thing this is. Has it got a torch on it? It should have a torch on it, it doesn't. Yeah, that's how it should be better. You can hang it off your key ring. It's quite heavy. That's the thing, it feels purposeful. So far, I haven't actually found anything that I don't really like. I think the wheels are a bit over the top, to be honest, but even the styling is one that, well, until it came here, I was imagining this, I just wouldn't really like it, but I do. So now I think it's time to get inside. That's something you do have to do yourself, which is to actually physically close the door and open it. It won't do that because it thinks that you want to get inside. The interior of this car is somewhat different to what I was expecting before it arrived, and that is that it's somewhat minimalist. Obviously it is full of function and it does have many things you could do with it, but it's not all in your face. It's not confusing, at least it isn't yet. The door card is kind of normal, made out of normal material. It's got some nice soft touch there, and then some Alcantara type material there, and then an LED strip that runs along as well. 4 electric windows, naturally, and then we have the displays, of which we have 2, or is it 3? These light up as soon as you open the door to let you know that your car is on. Most cars have a great big thingy here full of buttons and bits, and this is kind of just empty. It's just got like a great big bin that you could put all sorts of things in there, including, if you're particularly scruffy and untidy, rubbish, or maybe, I don't know, a bottle of something, bottle of pop, wine, whatever you want really. It also has a wireless charger, more bins, big hole to put things in. Then what we need to do is actually put the power on so that I can turn the wheel, because vehicle checks in progress. Okay, start and brake. Yep. Is it on now? Yes, it is. Now the steering is indeed loosened up. First thing I'm going to do is put on the heated seat, because I'm quite cold in here. The range of this car is supposed to be 280 miles, but of course it's never really going to do that. If you get close to it, you're going to be happy. During this time of year, it's going to be quite a lot less as well. The steering wheel's quite nice, and it's been copied off the Austin Allegro. There we have a camera rather than a rear view mirror, which is great unless you're filming it. Then it starts to flicker. The seat is very comfortable, and it's getting warm as well, which is even more comfortable. And I believe we can have a heated steering wheel as well. Yes, and as we see here, we have some manual switches, which is, of course, exactly what we need. Heated steering wheel, yes. I wonder how long that takes. I'd like to congratulate Renault for doing such an interesting design in here. And this material here, look like rather than a pretend leather, they've actually just taken a science teacher's trousers and made it out of that instead. Before I go off for a drive in this car, I'm going to sit in the back to see what it's like as a passenger. The back door is rather big, but the legroom not so much. Normally, before setting off in a car, I would open up the bonnet and show you the engine. But there's not a lot of point in doing this one, because it hasn't got one. That's why it's different to most of the things that I drive. One thing I really like about the electric car is the lack of oily stuff. Now you imagine when men first got into cars, many millions of years ago, it was all about being oily. Unless you were oily, you couldn't simply even open the door, never mind fix the thing. And that is a reversing camera, which is all very impressive. It tells you how big your car is compared to the things around you. And then the really cool thing is this. Look, how's it managed to do that? It's taken a picture of the car from above. Well, I can't see it. I can't see where the camera on a stick actually is. I actually prefer to be able to just look through the glass. And although this car does have glass, there's not that much of it at the back. So these cameras probably are more useful than I was first going to give them credit for. I still prefer mirrors though to cameras. As you can see, oh shit, what was that? Why did it do that? It just suddenly stopped for no reason. No idea why. Give me a fright, that did. So entering onto the King's Highway, where we shall test drive the Renault Mégane Elastic. Gosh, this is eerily quiet and smooth. Very, very smooth, and so nice to have a warm steering wheel as well. It's not the kind of thing I would have really thought as ever being necessary, but gosh, it's nice. One thing that this car doesn't have, that many cars I like do have, is an exhaust pipe. And that means that you don't get any kind of rasp. Will that be a problem? Oh, how can it be a problem? No, it just means that there's one sensory part of the driving experience that you just simply miss out on. But driving's just not about that these days. I mean, this car here, it is an automatic, of course. There aren't any gears to actually use in the first place. It'll stop you from having an accident. It'll stop you from weaving out of the lane that you're in whilst you're on the motorway. It'll stop you from backing into things. It'll stop you from backing into things that aren't even there, which is what I've just discovered then. But I'm more interested in how a car feels. And whether I like it or not. I'm worried about driving this car, not because of my own driving, but because what if the car thinks that something's about to happen that isn't, such as an accident? What if it sees a carrier bag float across the road there? Will it jam its brakes on and catch me unaware? Normally I'd want to talk about how the car drives, how it handles. Of course the steering is light and responsive. It's quite possibly a bit too light really, if I'm honest. The gear change is non-existent, and so is the noise. It has to be said they've done an amazing job with the sound deadening, because there's a bit of tyre roll, but that's it. I was expecting loads of noise off of the tyres, but there just isn't any. Well, I mean, there's a bit, but just nothing really to be concerned with. It does feel like I'm not actually doing anything. What we need to try out is the sport mode. I don't know how to use it. I'm going to have to stop to find out. Never been down here before. Normally, as I'm driving along, I know pretty much what I'm doing with the controls, and I don't really have to worry about taking my eyes off the road. But this time I thought I do actually need to stop and have a proper look at something. Economy mode there. If I press that, then what do I do next? Is it no, 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 no. Economy motor. It's like a gas meter. Got it. And with that, we end up with red LED lighting to know that something a bit more scary is going on. That now means that the full equivalent of 220 brake horsepower is available to my foot. Which foot? Right foot. That's the one. Will it impress? Because I think this is going to be a heavy car. It's not a particularly big car, but it's got to be heavy, hasn't it? It's not 220 brake horsepower, it's equivalent to 220 brake horsepower anyway. And yeah, in an old car, of course, that would be hugely fun. Not bad. I don't know though, without some sort of sound to go with it, it doesn't have quite the same excitement somehow. But I think I would be tempted to be pressing that button quite a bit if this was my car. And because it's not my car and I won't be the one paying for the electric, I've got the same temptation. Let's see how it just pulls off around this corner here. Because this Ford Puma is going very slowly actually. And oh yeah, that's quite impressive actually. Yeah, that's as much as you need really, I'd say. What about the way it actually handles? It's going to have some sort of nannying traction control on the way, and there's no doubt you won't really be able to switch that off properly. And even with that in the dry here, I can feel it at odds with itself somewhat. I mean, it's quick, but it's not what you would call a sporty drive. 0 to 60 apparently is in either 6.9 seconds or 7.1, depending on which bit of information you are getting your information from. Presumably the heated seat and the heated steering wheel is taking away some of the available power as well. Oh, it is something like this. You know, we have a bridge here. Open the window and clog it under here. Oh yeah, there's no point, is there? One of the most important questions when it comes to a car is, would you buy one? And the answer is up to you. Would I buy one? I think the depreciation would just bother me far too much because it's an expensive car. I think it's about £32,000, which is quite a lot of money for a medium or small sized car. Although of course a car like this has all the luxury that a big car used to offer, and it's safer than a big car used to be, and it's quicker than a sports car used to be, and cheaper to use than a cheap diesel used to be. It flies. I've got to give this car back before I use up all the electricity, because that is the one thing I am finding quite addictive. In sport mode, it just really does accelerate. I'm impressed. The only thing I'm not impressed by was that moment where it decided to suddenly stop whilst I was backing up, even though there was nothing to stop for. That caught me out a bit, and I was expecting to not enjoy the drive, but I have done. It does seem to have a bit of personality to it though, which is a rare commodity indeed. Just flick the setting over onto comfort mode instead, because I've done the sporty bit. That's enough of that. I enjoyed it, but it's not, you don't, that's where I think this car is slightly at odds with itself, as with all electric cars. An electric car that is really stupidly quick kind of goes against the idea of having an electric car. With people who like driving and like sporty things, like a little bit more of an oral sensation with it as well, want to be able to hear something going on. Because of course this, oh, hello cat. I got distracted by a cat then. Oh yeah. Now a car like this is designed to be as safe as possible, with every single possible thing to keep you from having a crash. As well as that, all of the airbags and all the other bits of things that will stop you from hurting yourself when you do have a crash, also there. And really what it means is that it's for people that need to get from A to B but don't want to drive. They don't really want to think about it. And so the car keeps you safe. And that's where the power kind of conflicts with the rest of it. I'm not to say that if you have a powerful car it should be dangerous, but if it feels dangerous it's more exciting. Ah, there's the regen braking. It feels exactly the same as having a sticking caliper. It's kind of curious. Now if this was your everyday car and you got into an old car like mine that had not been used for a while and the calipers were sticking, you'd have no idea. You just wonder why you suddenly found yourself on fire. I really do enjoy driving a different car. Generally I go looking for older classic things, but something new like this can be surprising, and this was surprising. I've really genuinely enjoyed having a go in this car, but I must admit that this does concern me. Oh, what does that do? Right, maybe that's, yes. I honestly do like this car, and I wasn't expecting to do. I like the fact that it's quirky, that it's different. I like the fact that they've built this car in France, rather than what they normally do, which is to build it in any other country rather than their own country. But of course this wouldn't really work unless there was something I wasn't entirely happy about, and that is actually the electric side of things. It can't really last forever, can it? At one point they did make cars with a view of having them last at least 20 or 30 years, look after them, and they do basically last longer than the human being that's bought them, whereas this simply can't. Even the door handles that electrically pop out, there's going to come a point where that motor is going to say, I've had enough, mate, I don't want to know anymore. What about in the cold? What's it like in the cold? Maybe that's it. You know that it's too cold outside for the battery in the car to operate properly and get you anywhere by the fact that you can't get the door open. Of course, the other point is that this car, as with any other modern car, is simply not made in the first place to last that long. It's designed to last until it's out of date and can be replaced with something that's much, much cleverer. So about 10 years. And with that, I shall close the door, walk away from it, and have myself a good old-fashioned cup of tea. The top of the range of the Mégane e-tronic tech, commerce, whatever it is. One place where the Mégane will sell an awful lot of units is actually France, which is why it's such a good thing that they built it in France. rather than South Africa. How's South Africa relevant? I don't know. I just thought I'd bung in a country. My Renault Mégane history so far. We had the first generation, which was just basically a reclothed Renault 19. It was a safe bet, but not a bad car. The second one was daring and ugly, but it was daring enough to not care about being ugly, and people bought it because of it. The third generation Mégane was utterly dull. It looked like a Vauxhall Astra, and it looked a bit like a Mercedes that was trying to look like a Vauxhall Astra as well. Who knew which was which? I certainly didn't, and it turns out they're not even related to each other. Fourth generation Mégane turned back into something a bit more stylish, though we're not going to talk about that one either.